And we're back, folks, here on the Michigan Basketball Insider with a special guest. He's been our guest, I think, 2 or 3 times, at least twice before, but the first time on camera, and certainly our first time talking to him since he announced he will be back for his 3rd year. The big fella is back in the building. Tim McCormick, we got Hunter Dickinson with us. Hunter, welcome, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my Mount Rushmore of Michigan big men, Juwan Howard, Chris Webber, Phil Hubbard, and Hunter Dickinson. Hunter, thanks so much for being here. I hope you're enjoying your spring, and we're so happy that you're coming back next year. I remember last September, you and I had a great conversation at the basketball tailgate before Northern Illinois, and you shared that you were leaving for the NBA after this past season. What is the main reason you came back? How did you go through that process?
First, Tim, you got to throw yourself, on the Mount Rushmore, man. I know you're trying to be humble. You got to throw yourself on there for sure.
I've visited Mount Rushmore. I've seen it, but I'm not on it.
But I think, I always tell people, if you told me, at the beginning of the season last year about me coming back for another year, I would have told you you're crazy. But I think with NLI, being able to, make money and still be in college, I think is the best of both worlds. For me, especially, me thinking long term, to be able to have another year in college, to be able to develop and just, be even more ready for the NBA. I know eventually at some point I'm going to play in the NBA. It could have been last year, could have been this year, but I just feel like with me, I want to be as ready as possible. I don't want to, however ready I'm going to be able to be after this year is going to be, as good as I can get. Hopefully, just with the teachings of Jaelin and the rest of the coaching staff, just being with Sam, man, for another year. I feel like another year of just developing my game and my body will definitely pay dividends for me next year.
Hunter, your journey reminds me a little bit of Luka Garza. I know you guys are close. I spoke to Luka this year, and he said Hunter is flat out an NBA player. You've been all Big Ten twice. You've been an All-American. What areas are you working on that we may see an improvement next year?
I mean, obviously, I want to get my 3-point percentage up. I knew 32% was I feel like going to be the minimum of what I was going to shoot this year. That's what I thought going into the season. And, on Spahola, I got 32.8 or something like that. And so I was pretty on with that, but I feel like another year of just being in the gym, getting shots up, I would definitely like to see myself above 35 at least. Hopefully in the 40% range is a big goal of mine. Offensively, just continuing to fine-tune things, getting more moves in the low block, being, more advanced with that. And then, with the mid-range jump shot, I see a lot of good bigs in the NBA utilizing that a lot. It's just an easier way to score without, doing so much banging and, a lot of wear and tear on your body. It's a nice way to get some extra points without, having to work too hard. So that's another area that I think offensively I'm definitely focusing on. And then defensively, I think the biggest thing I probably work on is being a rim protector. I think last year in the beginning of the season, I was just a little bit more passive with, being a rim protector. And I think towards the end of the season is when I really started to become, I try to focus more on it. And I feel like I was able to get more blocks and be more disruptive down there. So that's something that I'm going to try to focus on from the jump and try to make big improvements, trying to get at least, I'd say 2.5 blocks per game is I think a good goal for me.
Hunter, watching the evolution of your game, I sort of expected. I watched you in high school shoot threes a little more than you shot your freshman year, so I felt like that was going to come along. Know how hard you work on your low post game. The part that I was wondering about, and we started to see more of, is you as a vocal leader. Talked a lot to Phil about that, and he said they challenged you to be a guy that would be the accountability guy, to sort of get on teammates. Obviously, pat them on the back, but get on them at the same time to sort of will them, give them confidence at times. How much of an adjustment was that for you last year?
Yeah, I think, before last year, my freshman year, I was able to, just be like a follower. We had so much veteran leadership with guys, and we had such an old team that, I was able to be a freshman and, just have to, follow what everybody else was doing. But then this year, being a sophomore, usually you're still kind of in that role of following somebody. But, given the team dynamic, I was thrust into being, one of the leaders on the team. And it was something that, I had definitely had to deal with, something that I definitely had to improve in and work on as the season went on. And it's something that I think I definitely, grew in, and something that I know I'll need for next year, given that I'll be one of the elder statesmen on the team. It's crazy how I'll already be a junior, but I know I'll be expected to lead next year. And so that's something that, in this day and age, is kind of hard for guys, because it's like, you want to be so buddy with people, and, you don't want to make a lot of people upset. But, in this profession, leaders have to hold other people accountable. And so, it's definitely a give and pull type thing. And so for me, it's just all about trying to learn, I guess, even more about how to lead. And I feel like I've gotten a good taste of that from guys who've came before me. And so, I hope to, be able to fill their shoes next year.
What specifically was Jawan saying to you, for instance, to get more of that out? Was he telling you in specific situations, hey, Hunter, I need you to go talk to the team? Or was that more you taking it upon yourself after hearing it early in the season, taking it upon yourself over the course of the year, knowing when you need to speak more, when you need to do more to kind of bring your teammates along?
Yeah, I definitely tried to, take it upon myself, and, try to do it, like, try to self-teach myself. But I think, towards the end of the season, they just, I guess Coach Howard and, the rest of the coaching staff just, thought that, like, I need to do it even more. And so, they would give me instances of where they thought I should step up and, say stuff and, kind of teach people and try to lead. And so they did. It was a little bit of both, my own tuition, and then also, the coaching staff stepping in and telling me, trying to teach me themselves on how to, step in when I need to.
Hunter, the roster is in no way finalized, but what is the ceiling for this team next season? And we're anxious to see the young guys, but you know firsthand, who's the breakout star? Who's the guy we can get really excited about?
Yeah, like you said, the roster isn't fully, I guess, completed yet. There's still moving parts, and, you don't know what some players are going to do. You got Musa and Caleb who, are testing the waters and see, you don't know what's going to happen with that. But I think, one guy that I think everybody on the team and the coaching staff is definitely expecting to make a big leap is Kobe. Obviously you can see the potential that he has, the skill set, everything like that. He's got it all. I think it's just a matter of, him putting it together. And I think another year, in the Big Ten, I think you'll see him to get a lot more comfortable in his own game. And just, I think the game will really slow down for him, like it did for me. Even as a freshman going into my sophomore year, I could just tell the game was a little bit different of a speed. Like it just got all slowed down, and, it made it a lot easier for me. And so I think the same thing will happen for him. And I'm expecting a big sophomore campaign for him.
I like the Hunter Dickinson that's growling at opponents and dunking on people and staring at the other team's bench. Who do you hate in the Big Ten? Is there a team that really gets you going? Who's that team?
Man, I'm doing a better job with these interviews. I'm not really giving myself up anymore. Like the easiest answer is obviously like Michigan State, because it's just like, you can just tell, like it's hard to explain to other people. Like Tim, because you played in it, but it's like it's hard to explain to other people like what that kind of rivalry is like. Like you kind of have to be in the game to realize like how much like the teams don't like each other. Like the freshmen. I remember we were trying to tell them like the first game before it got canceled. It was like around New Year's, and like we had like a 3-day build up to it, and like each day the coaching staff and the players were trying to like tell the freshmen and Devontae like how much this game means, and like how much we don't like them and they don't like us. And the game happened, and it's kind of like they kind of got it, but by the second time it was like even the freshmen knew like, yeah, man, like we just don't like them and they don't like us. And it's just like It's like that kind of game. And I mean, that's an easy one, but like that's just the most obvious answer. Obviously, it's just like they don't like us and we don't like them, and that's as simple as you can put it.
So when you make a bucket and you turn to the bench, are you responding to something that someone on the bench has said to you, or is that just a gratuitous, "Hey, y'all want some? I'm gonna give y'all some." What is it like? What prompts that when you turn around? What do you say when you turn around?
I mean, so sometimes like on some jump shots, sometimes like I'll hear like a coach or somebody on the bench be like short or off or something like that, and I'll say something. I'll let them know if I make it, but usually it's me just starting something up because like that's just how I stay. Like that's how I get into the game. That's how I'm like energetic and focused. Like some like I don't want to say I get bored out there, but it's like sometimes like you're like my mind can just wander during the game, and it's like when I'm doing that kind of stuff, like I stay locked in and I'm like laser focused on the game, and so that's kind of why I do it. The Michigan State game, that was fun. I had a lot of fun with that. That was like it was a fun game for me. I just feel like the way we played, we needed that game badly, and the guys really stepped up that game, and I just feel like it was a really good win for us.
So I know players talk, whether they're on the court or on the sideline, but do coaches talk to you during games?
Nah, nah, no, not unless I say something first. Nah, no, not in the Big Ten. The Big Ten coaches are pretty chill. Like they're all pretty cool. I've met or like at least had like a handshake with most of them. I mean, they're all pretty good guys. I feel like I got some more that I know more than others. Like I know Fran McCaffrey pretty well. He's a really cool guy. I like him a lot. I respect him a lot. And so, I mean, like I'll joke with him actually during the game. I remember him. I was joking with him during one of the games. I was joking with Coach Hoiberg at Nebraska one game, and then a couple other coaches. I'll mess with them a little bit, but like it'll be like funny stuff. It's not anything serious or anything.
Hunter, I know another coach that can talk a little bit, and that's Juwan Howard. I've enjoyed watching you guys in practice where he's banging with you at 50 years old. Is there any talk during that time that like does he really feel like he can stop you, or is that unrealistic? And I want you to go back and try to imagine, could Juwan Howard in his prime versus you right now? How does that matchup look? I want to hear both answers.
Man, in practice, I really do think he can like give. I really do think he thinks he can give us some buckets. Like he has a body now. I'm not gonna lie. Like he is a big body. Like he's got some weight behind him and some strength, like some old man strength. I feel like he's at that age where he's got that old man strength now, and so he's not light at all. Like he was definitely banging with us and giving us some bump, but nah, man, not now. It's too far behind his years now. In his prime, I'll give it to him. It'll be a game in his prime for sure. I'll
All
give it
right.
to him. I'll give him some credit. It'll be a game for sure.
Listen, don't underestimate old man strength. Okay, it's there and it's real. Um, and I know you're enjoying college, and I remember seeing you at the Michigan Ohio State football game, and you're a big man on campus and enjoy that environment. Where were you that day? Where were you sitting? What do you remember? Was that just one of the highlights of your career so far?
Oh man, I remember that game. I'll never forget that game. I remember we had a workout early in the morning because Jawan had to go to like, 'cause I think we had some recruits and Jawan had to go on game day, and so our thing was at like 8 a.m. We never work out that early, so it was like that. I remember I was kind of like in a mood that morning. I didn't really like something happened in the workout where I was like I got in the mood and I wasn't really feeling it that day. Wasn't my day, so I couldn't wait to get out of there. And then everybody was like hyped up for the game. We had people who like a lot of the players on the team would go to the football games, but we had some that everybody went to that game, and so it was really fun. Um, I remember like it was snowing, and so like you're going down to your seats, and I still got videos on my phone where it was just snow. It looked like out of a movie, and so I was sitting like right behind the goalpost, like facing away. I was sitting behind the goalpost, and I don't know how to describe it, but I had some pretty good seats. I'm able to finesse some good seats down there for the games, and
You
so
think?
for me, that game was insane. I'm not gonna lie, like I was kind of nervous the whole game. I was like, man, and like we were up, but I was still nervous because I was like, man, I know we need this win, like just for the program, the football program, but like Michigan as a whole. Like I knew how big that game was for us, and for us to win it, oh, it was so amazing. I remember I was like one of the first on the field. I jumped on there real fast, and my brothers and everybody was with me, and it was a great day. It was an amazing day, and then the night, of course, everybody had fun after that, and so it was a day I'll never forget for sure.
Are you tight with any of the football players? Who are your boys on the team? Maybe some DMV guys?
Yeah, yeah, definitely know a couple of DMV guys. People I'm closest with are probably like the linemen. Like I'm pretty close with all the linemen. I'll see them out and about, and I feel like I'm pretty cool with them. Like Braden McGregor, Zach Zinner, O line, D line. I'm cool with those guys. Aiden, those guys are pretty cool to hang out with, and so no, I like hanging out with them.
So Oluwatimi is a Dematha guy. Did you know
Yeah,
you know him?
I haven't got the opportunity to hang out with him since he's been here, but yeah, no, I remember him at Dematha for sure. Him and Chase Young and all those guys, they were great that year at Dematha. But yeah, I'm excited. I told him I remember when he came here on a visit, it was before one of the basketball games, and once I found out that he committed, I was really happy for him. Be able to have another Dematha guy experience the Michigan education and just the lifestyle. I know he'll have a lot of fun here and hopefully a lot of success on the football field.
So speaking of DMV, your DMV brother on the squad, T. Will, you couldn't help but notice the work he did last offseason, right? I mean, his jumper it was so much better. He was a reliable shooter. What do you see him in the lab sort of focused on, and what should we expect? What do you expect T. Will to bring to the table next year?
I mean, Tebow's always been a shooter, like ever since first started shooting threes, and like I remember, like it was like in the seventh grade, he was shooting his first threes. And I turned to his dad. I was like, "Man, he's shooting threes." He's like, "Yeah, we're working on it." And so ever since, like, especially in like high school and stuff like that, he was a really good shooter. I think last year it was just a matter of like confidence, being a guy who you didn't know what you were going to expect. Going into the game, you might play, you might not play, and so I think that adjustment for him was kind of difficult. I think it'd be difficult for anybody really.
Right.
And so for him to be able to kind of know a little bit more about his role last year or this year that just happened, I think was really helpful for him, knowing that he's going to play every game and be able to, contribute and, obviously affect the game with his shooting and just overall toughness. I think this year, he's going to try to work on his ball handling over the summer and really become, fine tune with that, be able to be more of a creator offensively instead of just, a spot up three guy. And so that and just, being able to guard, I think those are the two biggest things that, he's working on, trying to, become more versatile defensively and then offensively as well with the ball handling. I think, you can definitely expect some big things from him because, he's a ball player. He's a guy that you want on your team. He just makes you better and a fierce competitor that I love having out there.
Hunter, you mentioned earlier that part of your decision to come back is based on NIL. I'm fascinated by this. You're an NIL pioneer. You're one of the first ones to hit it big. Are you out there on your own? Does the school help you? Do you have an agent? How does the process look, and what insight, maybe something that nobody really knows about the NIL process that you can share?
The NIL process is pretty difficult. I'm not gonna lie. Like, especially during the season, like it can be overwhelming because you got like contracts that you're trying to sign. Like, you got to be aware of like um, obligations that the companies are holding you up to because it's like you got to post something or something like that. Like I remember I had to post something like the night before a game. I know before the Villanova game, like a company hit me up like the day before, like early the day before the game, and like, yeah, we'll give you this if you post this video. And I was like, shoot, I can't mess up on that. So I did it, but it can get overwhelming. I have a group. Last year I had a guy help me with it, but I also had like people bringing me deals and stuff like that. But this year I'll sign a group of people, a marketing group, and they'll help me out with like facilitating deals, bringing me deals, helping me like negotiate and, like look at the contracts and stuff like that, make sure they're all in my favor. And then I think the thing that people don't know would probably be like Michigan really doesn't help us at all. They don't like they're not like Jawan and them aren't allowed to kind of like bring us stuff like that, which I think doesn't make any sense. Like in this day and age, like there's no way a guy commits in his NIL deal is like disclosed on Twitter like an hour after. Like they didn't work that fast. They did not work that fast. Like it was definitely put into place before he got there, and he wasn't going around asking, that place in Miami, like, hey, like if I commit here, do you want to do something? It was definitely put in place for him to commit, and the deal was going to be the deal. I just think Michigan in that sense is so far behind because it's like you're never going to get a top 10 player again unless you're able to provide NIL for him. Like, why, if I'm the number one player in the country for basketball or football, why would I come to Michigan where they're saying they have like the potential for you to get something when I'm at Alabama for football or if I'm at Kentucky for basketball, and they're like, no, you commit here and this deal is like you can sign it right after you sign the letter for $1 million. Like, I would never come to Michigan if that's the case. Like, they're going to lose out on so many players if they don't start stepping up to the plate. Like, I feel bad for Coach Jawan and Coach Harbaugh because it's like they're trying. Like, it's not their fault. The coaches are trying for sure. I mean, I know for a fact Jawan and Coach Harbaugh are trying and pleading with the administration, but it's just like at some point they're going to realize that you either got to be all in or you're not going to get anybody. And so that's my take on it. I feel like I want Michigan to be great. I want them to be able to get everybody they can. I want us to be the number one school for every sport and be able to get everybody. I feel like we have the potential. I feel like NIL is the perfect thing for us because it's like we have the best alumni in the world, and so it's like why not be able to use that? If we have all these great facilities, it's like we have so many donors. Instead of a donor donating 20 million to you don't know what, why don't he donate 18 million and then 2 million to the basketball team, and you're able to pay and get a top 5 team in the country, and you still have that great facility, but you also have a top 5 team in the country that you can also win and put people in the seats and be able to show off that success. I just think, that's something that I wish Michigan would do better, and I feel like eventually they're gonna, have to move in that space.
Hunter, I told you 10 to 12 minutes, man. This is too good. I can't let you walk away right now.
Really good.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of curious. I'm trying to imagine the life of the big man on campus. You're walking through the diag. What is a typical day like for you? And are you just bombarded with autograph seekers and people that want to say hi? What's it like being Hunter Dickinson on Michigan's campus?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Like at first it was really fun. Like, I mean, who doesn't like being loved around campus? It's really fun. Now it's like I'm starting to try to develop the incognito. I'm trying to move around.
I got to hear about that one. How do you do that?
Trying to just move around more secretly, man, walk around with a hood on and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, like, I enjoy people, coming up to me and, like, one autograph and stuff like that. It's better than them, coming up and booing you or something like that. And so, I always appreciate it. A typical day for me is, walking to class. If I do it right, I probably won't get stopped. But, it depends on where I walk and, how I'm doing. Excuse me. But, like, it's really get bad when, like, when I enter like a group of Michigan fans, like if I go to a game, like a sports game around campus, or I go to Detroit for a game, like those is when it gets bad. But I mean, like Michigan fans are crazy. I mean, that's why I like them. Like they're a little crazy, and that's a good thing. Like you can see it on Twitter. We're crazy. We're a crazy fan base, but hey, I like it. It's better than being, like a boring fan base. And so it's fun. I guess like attraction can be a little like annoying sometimes, but I mean, I can deal with it.
My last couple for you, Hunter. I want to go back to you talking about Nigel Pack, transferred from Kansas State to Miami, 400 stacks a year and a car, and the company announces it on Twitter. It made me wonder how much of a consideration for portal guys. I mean, is it really one of those things where not only are they looking at the school, they're looking at playing with a Hunter Dickinson, they're also weighing on the table NIL opportunities versus the prospect of them. Is that a real thing from portal guys that are in the portal that maybe or talk to?
Yeah, I mean, like nowadays, I feel like that's one of the first things that will come up. Like I know, I definitely have friends in the portal, and they're like, people are offering me this, people are offering me that. Like, decisions will definitely be made based off just NIL, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, you don't like that could be a bad thing because it's like people will go places strictly off NIL and not think of anything else. And so I just hope guys really consider, the full picture of, um, the recruitment because guys can get sucked into a deal and you don't even realize that you're in a system, in a area, in a place that you don't even like, and you find yourself there for 4 years. I mean, it won't be a fun experience for you. And so I just hope guys, obviously taking the full experience, not just focus on the NIL because, if you do it right and your team wins enough, I feel like, you'll be able to make your money at some point regardless.
And then my last one. So Hunter, we know the focal point you are on the court, in the locker room, in workouts. But what about as a recruiter? I mean, is it one of those things where they unleash you once a guy gets on campus and they want you with a guy? Or if it's a portal guy, is that guy reaching out to you? Without the coaches, or you reaching out to him? And the same thing with guys back in the DMV. I mean, Michigan is recruiting out the hell out of the DMV, basketball and football. Are those players reaching out to you, or coaches coming to you saying, "Hey, reach out to this guy or that guy for me"?
Hey man, they call me the closer around here, man. Yeah. I mean, for sure, like portal wise, definitely reaching out to people. If I hear like they're thinking about us, or if they just hit the portal, especially if they're about to take a visit, they definitely, I guess, like you said, unleash me once they get to campus. Yeah, yeah. No, I make sure they have a good time. Make sure they see, the good parts of Ann Arbor and everything Michigan has to offer. And so, yeah, and the portal wise, for sure, definitely one of the lead recruiters they got around here. But in terms of like high school recruiting, yeah, I always, whenever I'm back home or I'm on social media or texting, one of my younger guys, I always try to tell them about Michigan. I feel like Michigan is, amazing place. Even though, I talk bad about some NIL stuff and, how they do that, I still believe that Michigan is, a unique university. I feel like there's no other university out there like us to be able to kind of just come to Michigan, not knowing anything about it and come in here and the people really embracing me. I feel like I'm a Michigan native. I'm an honorary Tigers fan, as I say. And I just feel like, with the education and, having Juwan Howard here, like there's really not, a ton of schools that can kind of stack up to this experience. And so I'm really happy with, my decision to come to Michigan. And I just try to, tell other younger guys about my experience and, try to get them to experience what I'm experiencing now.
I have two real quick ones to close. Musa and Caleb are going to test the waters. You've already gone through that process. Did they ask you about it? Did you have any advice for them? And if not, what can they expect?
Yeah, no, I remember I would tell them all the time because I mean, you kind of understood, you kind of assumed that they were going to do this, and so yeah, I would tell them all the time about what my experiences were like. The workouts, working out for NBA teams. I told them how fun it was, but definitely how much of a grind it was. Like you're going to be in the summer really not having a life pretty much. You're just in there grinding every day, trying to perfect your craft, trying to get the best shape, best skill that you've ever been in your life. And so it's a grind, but I just had so much fun with it last year that, I hope they'll be able to have the same amount of fun and, see where that kind of whole experience takes them.
Final question. When you look back on your 2 years at Michigan, what is the number one moment that just makes you smile? It was a thrill. You'll never forget it. What was that one moment?
Man. That's on the court.
Yep.
On the court, I would say, oof, man, that's a tough one. Probably
Is there one off the court? I want to hear that one too.
That you can share.
Off the court was definitely Ohio State, but on the court, I'd probably just have to. I want to say the Tennessee game. That was just such a special win for us. I feel like, it was just so fun how we won and really just played together. But I have to do the Big Ten championship game versus Michigan State. How, it was. We were fortunate enough that it was them. We were able to play them to kind of close out the season and to be able to be crowned Big Ten champs. I think that game was so special. I had a lot of fun that game. I'd probably say that game, the memories that were made just to close out such a special season. I'd say that game for sure.
Great. Hunter, you're on the way to being a legend. And I bet there are times you look up in the rafters and you see Bill Bunton and Rudy Tomjanovich and Phil Hubbard and Glenn. Do you ever think about your name up there?
I'm not gonna lie to you, every day in practice.
You look up there and you imagine someday that Hunter Dickinson will be there.
Every day, yeah, every day.
Hey man, well, big fella, we appreciate you. I just appreciate, man, that you're a regular dude. Like as big time as you are, you're a regular guy, man. Appreciate that.
I remember I was with Julius Marble. We were hanging out on a Saturday, and we were together. And he was telling me, I was like, man, I really want to hate you, but you're a really cool guy. I was like, man, that's what people don't know about me, Chew, man. That's what people don't know.
All right, well, Hunter, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Hunter.
Wow, Tim, it was great to catch up with Hunter. It was it's always awesome when we have him on. Like I said, I think we've had him on, I know at least twice, but maybe 3 times, but this was fire to have the big fella on with us right after he decided to come back.
I still have this image of him trying to hide incognito as he crosses the diag walking to class. That's wow. Not going to happen.
Right.
Sam, when I think of Hunter, I really like him a lot. And I think him returning just guarantees that this is a top 10, top 15 team. Everybody has their own path. And sometimes it's affected by injuries or a lack of playing time, or maybe your skill set's not exactly what the NBA wants. But his decision is mature, and it's the right one. He's got a big opportunity to get bigger and stronger and faster, to work on his skill set, to get his degree, maybe even a master's, to build lifelong friends, to create that brand that is legendary. And then how about go ahead and lead your team to a Final Four, and just like you said, someday he might see his uniform up in the rafters.
Yeah, he's and what he said at the end about Marble at Michigan State, it's like, man, I want to hate you, but I can't, because he's one of those guys that other teams don't like, but they respect. It's not like a Grayson Allen hate or a Brad Davison hate, where those dudes are just dirty. It's more like a Christian Laettner hate, where that dude's good, and you hate him because he's good, and you hate him because he talks trash, but you respect his game. I'm not saying he's Christian Laettner, but you get my point.
No doubt. And he plays the right way. He plays hard. He's really he's flat out a star player, one of the best that Michigan's ever had.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so Tim, he raised some issues that we've talked a lot about, recruiting, the transfer portal, NIL. He definitely gave you a player perspective on it that made you sort of see what some of the challenges are going to be for Michigan moving forward.
Yeah, he did. And I'm not surprised that he's the closer, because that's his personality. And there's a lot of opportunity for teams. The whole landscape of college basketball has changed. And when he mentioned the transfer portal, Sam, did you realize there are 283 college basketball players right now in the portal? That includes 23 guys from the Big Ten. And it's such a challenge to go out there and get the right guys. And so I know that Juwan Howard and his staff's number one priority is to get those high character guys. You know, Mike Smith and Sean D. Brown, Devontae Jones, they were really good. They were high quality. They wanted to win. They were there for the right reasons. They were academic guys. And it bothers me to think that in a lot of these transfer portal cases, the top players are walking on campus, and the first question they ask is, how much do I get? You know, they don't care about where the library is at, or do you have, you know, the type of major I want, or will my credits transfer? They only want the cash. And I hate that, but there's an opportunity for Michigan by doing it the right way to get those players that are a perfect fit.
Yeah, look, I think it, you know, it doesn't have to be in either or. You know, I don't even care about the order in which they ask about things, but it should be a priority. I think that when a student athlete comes to campus, a parent comes to campus with that student athlete, they have significant questions about NIL and money making opportunities. I think that's warranted. I think they should be asking those questions. If that's the only question they ask, then Tim, okay, I get that. I get that being an issue, but for that to be a priority, that's the day and age that we live in. And I think that schools had better be ready to deal with what Hunter had to say about NIL. That was you know, it's not very different. It's not, as a matter of fact, it's not at all different from what I know he's been saying internally. And he's sort of given some indications, at least in press conferences going back to the tournament, that there were some NIL issues, or there were some things that he was taking issue with as far as Michigan's NIL approach.
Sam, I couldn't agree more. I loved the interview, and I thought that Hunter was fantastic. He's smart, he's funny, he's insightful. And as an All-American and an All Big Ten star, he now has the platform to speak his mind, and people will listen. And Michigan has always built itself on forward thinkers, contrarian views. And so I'm sure that there are some people that didn't like his comments at Michigan, but I thought that they were very insightful. So I have to say that I don't completely agree with some of his NIL commentary, but I respect his leadership, and I would imagine he's shown a great deal of courage. There are probably a lot of other athletes that feel the way that he does. I think some coaches probably agree with him too. But I do believe that when you think about his vision and his word, he's a forward thinker, and some of his words are going to make people rethink NIL. So here's my thought. I do agree that Michigan's athletic department really appears to be moving slow and prudent. They're watching the landscape of a brand new initiative. And I was thinking about the fact that, Michigan's been around, founded in 17, and they're regarded as one of the academic institutions that's truly elite. The athletic department is a component of the big picture. And I promise they're going to move slow and not allow any controversy or mistakes to embarrass the integrity of the university. Now, Sam, I'm pretty certain that 5 years from now, Michigan is going to have a very specific policy that lays it all out, but there's no way that they're going to be out in the front of this thing. So you're going to have frustration, and you probably over the next couple of years will lose some recruits that maybe you could have. I think it's going to be really a fascinating story, but I once again believe that the NCAA has embarrassed itself in some ways. There just aren't enough rules. NIL and transfer portal, there needs to be specific rules that everybody follows. This is so broken down by states, and actually, high school athletes in California and North Carolina and New Jersey, high school guys can get NIL deals. And so it's just, It's just so inconsistent.
Yeah, so I feel the need to first sort of unpack Hunter's motivation, because I think there might be some people that will sort of take like what. Like I said, he has been very consistent with what he said behind the scenes. He didn't say anything publicly that he hasn't said privately. That's number one. Number two, I think he is making a concerted effort to speak for more than just himself. I do believe that he's advocating for student athletes as a whole. I do believe that he's representing the thoughts and views of many coaches as well. If Hunter was so disenchanted with Michigan, so disillusioned with what Michigan is about, he could have entered the port. I mean, set the NBA aside. He had an option other than the NBA. Hunter Dickinson could easily go into the portal and put himself up to the highest NIL bidder if he didn't love Michigan. So that he's coming back in and of itself is a sign that he loves Michigan. This is about, I think it's truly about, for him, what does the future hold for the program and the institution that he loves. I really truly believe that that's a large part of his motivation, because you heard him say, hey, if they don't change, you're going to see them not get top 10 players, them not get top transfers. That's going to be a consequence of this, which has nothing to do with Hunter. Hunter's going to be long gone by the time. Even if there's a policy change, does it benefit Hunter as much as it's going to benefit those who come after him? So I really think, as sort of, I mean, there are going to be some people who go back and listen to those comments, kind of keep that in mind. That was one of my real takeaways, having spoken to him before and speaking to other student athletes, that I know that it's about that for him. Now, the other side of this, Tim, is there are, the gap between what Michigan is doing and what he and other student athletes want them to do is so wide, because I think that there are two things. The perception of what they can do is out of whack. And then I do think that Michigan is taking a very conservative, deliberate sort of approach to how they enter this space. Like you said, I think they're being very careful and very measured about it. I think that you see some things out there that are being done that Michigan could do. Michigan State, just by comparison, right here in state, Michigan State is paying every student athlete $6,000. Now, it seems like chump change compared to $400,000 for Nigel Pack, right? But that's an example of something that is being done elsewhere that is different or more than what Michigan is doing right now. So there are some things, that's just an example of something that they can do that they haven't done. Now, can they go out and get deals for their student athletes? Hey, I'm going to go talk to Tim McCormick Incorporated. Tim, you do this deal with Hunter. That legally they cannot do that. Are there some ways in which you can put student athlete with potential NIL investor, so to speak, or NIL benefactor? Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the influencer deal is all about. What this platform that they put together is all about. You got Valiant, that is sort of an indirect sort of connection to Michigan. There are things that are being put in place. I'm sure student athletes would say, well, hey, I see X, Y, and Z going on elsewhere. Could there be more along the lines of what they're doing with Influencer and Valiant? One of the things I've thrown out there, Tim, I don't know what's the difference between a job fair, like you see engineering majors have, and social work. I mean, there are job fairs going on campuses all the time. What's the difference between that and an NIL fair, where you have NIL benefactors and student athletes going booth to booth? That's not you putting them with a specific student athlete, but that is facilitating meetings in more of in a more substantial way than maybe we see with the apps. I don't even know if that's possible, right? But I'm throwing that out there as a sign of thinking outside the box, thinking that forward thinking that you're talking about, that might appease some of the discontent that is out there among student athletes who feel like, hey, I see how elsewhere it really feels like these institutions are bending over backwards to try to do more. I want to at least feel like Michigan is trying to do more. Now, they don't know what Michigan is doing behind the scenes. They don't know if they're considering XYZ deal, but I bet you they are. And so do you inform them more? Do you include them more in that process? I think the information gap is a part of this too, to sort of let them know, look, we're trying, and maybe there's some things that are right on the horizon. I think the communication on it would go a long way to maybe appeasing some of the discontent that's out there.
This is such a multifaceted story, and it's confusing. I've talked to people at Michigan. I've talked to people that are working with some of the outside groups. I've spoken to athletes, and everybody is just searching. And I think that it's really wise of Michigan to not allow a blank check type of scenario where guys are just out there on the loose. And I do applaud Hunter, because I do think he probably has a buddy that's a gymnast, and he knows somebody on the track team, and he wants everybody to get compensated. But I don't know if this is going too far of a direction to the side, but one of my big concerns for the athletes, and I'll try to be brief on this, is that, you have an athlete that has access to massive amounts of money at 18 or 19 years old. They have no experience with managing money. Do they understand tax consequences? I don't know. You've got family and friends that feel like they hit the lottery. It's very hard to say no. Do they have a long-term vision? Do they understand about investing? And are they mature enough to keep that hunger and drive after they just received a big check from somebody? And are they going to have as good a chance to get to the next level? I know that when I was in college, I didn't have, I didn't have any money. And I was very focused on trying to see how far I could take my career. And I look back on it, the hope is that at 30 years of age, these guys are going to have maybe a wife and a couple of kids, and you want to be able to buy a house. Is any of that money even going to be around? That's another question that I have, and I worry about all of these young guys. We've seen millionaires that won through the lottery, and what happens? The vast majority of them go bankrupt because they come from a place where they didn't have any money. And so that's something else that I think is really a concern, Sam.
No, I think it's a great point. And frankly, I think it's the responsibility of the programs, the coaches, the institutions, to have education along those lines, to inform them about tax liability and investing your money. That should be part of the fabric. Just like I said when we were talking earlier about how, look, expect for NIL should be something that as parents and student athletes are coming on campus, that should be something they expect to hear about. It shouldn't be the only thing. Like, to me, that's a red flag. If someone comes around and their only interest is NIL, then that might not be. I could see how an institution, how a coach would say, you know what, that prospect is not for me. But any prospect who asks about NIL shouldn't be disqualified, because to me, I think it's the responsibility that is a part of the consideration now. One of the parts of the consideration now. Now, for me, as we talk about, and we were talking about Pandora's box here. Listen, as coaches get out on the recruiting trail, and I think this is where you really have to be clear with the coaches about where you are, what your strategy is, right? Because they are competing against other programs it's the Wild West of NIL. And as we talk to prospects about Michigan and what they're saying about NIL, it's more of a wait and see as far as what more beyond what they're doing now that they're going to do. Like, they have influencer Valiant's around as a representative entity, but you got student athletes saying, is there anything else? Are there ways in which the programs can put the student athlete in position to get more deals and that kind of thing. Well, coaches are in a position where they are saying they don't know, and that does put them behind. So, the pace of it is a thing. The communication of it is a thing, but it's also, I think, to your point, Tim, and why you can't go. If you're going 30, you can't go to 80 because you see what happened. We talked about Nigel Pack, 400,000 a year. Then Isaiah Wong comes right after that and says, if I don't get what Nigel Pack just got, I'm out the door. And you can't find me a coach that's okay with that. Like, I don't know any coach that's like, yeah, that's fine. That's more where that came from. And they're represented by the same guy. It's like, you got the same representative sort of putting one deal versus the other, hold it over the head of the NIL benefactor. The NIL benefactor said, I don't renegotiate. He could go someplace else, basically determining the future of the program. You don't want that. That's one of the reasons why I think a deliberate pace is advisable here, but being a little more proactive in this thing, at least in the communication, or at least in the idea exchange. This is what I think is ahead for the NCAA, Tim, is you come up with a rule book. You can't come up with a rule book without the student athlete sitting at the table. If for no other reason than having them understand the why, right? Otherwise, you're going to get sued. I feel the same way about NIL. And that's on an institution by institution basis. As you come up with NIL policy, it's important for them to have a seat at the table while the discussion of what you're going to do are going on, so they at least understand the why. If you aren't doing what they're doing at Miami, let them know why. Let them know why. Let them know it's not you just dragging your feet. Otherwise, you leave it to their imagination, the why, and you don't want to do that, in my opinion.
Sam, I don't think I've ever seen college basketball in such a precarious, messy situation. The NIL has no ability to resolve itself right now. There are 1,500 players that are in the transfer portal right now looking. They're like Dorothy heading to Oz. They're expecting it to be beautiful and everything is going to be wonderful and all our problems will be gone. 1,500 players, and a lot of them are not going to find a soft landing spot. I think that it's clouding the judgment of players. I talked to a coach this week, and he shared a story about one of his players that came and said, Coach, I don't think I'm going to leave, but I'm going to go into the portal because I want to get out there and just see what options I have available. And the coach said, if you step out the door, you can't come back. And he said, I'm teaching you a lesson right now because 10 years from now, you might have a beautiful wife. She's awesome. You love her. And one day she might come to you and say, I don't think I'm going to leave this marriage, but it's in my best interest just to see what's out there. I'm going to go meet some other guys. And if I don't find anything better, I'll come back. When you make a commitment, you stick with your commitment. I want to see the players get compensated and I want them to have freedom, but the players need to have some reality that it's not real life. People are not going to be writing blank checks for you when you leave school. It's something to think about now.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, look, me, been advocating for more compensation from the get-go. I think the amateurism model was a control to keep labor in place while you see big checks being written elsewhere. And that's a big problem for a lot of people, is that the big checks are being more spread out now. But even those that are like me, that have been feeling like student athletes need to be compensated better, you see the pitfalls in what's going on currently. I mean, it's not just that you got NIL business people, influencing whether a student athlete goes or stays. It's that they can have a direct hand in poaching other institutions. Hey, coach, you got a hole at point guard. I could say, hey, I'm putting $400,000 up, and I'm gonna go and see who we can get. Who maybe it's a guy who wasn't even interested in going into the portal, and you're poaching. Now that kind of thing is really going on. I mean, a story I heard, for instance, not necessarily along those lines, but in the shop around way, there was a Midlands region prospect who was looking at programs in the Midwest, and there were a couple of programs in the Midwest that were going back and forth. I heard 300,000 was being tossed, or 250, 300 is being tossed around. And then that same prospect winds up going down in the South for a number bigger than that. That's the kind of game that's being played right now. Do you really want to play that? How do you put some control over there to make sure there isn't poaching, to make sure that the influence of NIL benefactors isn't being as disruptive to continuity? If a student athlete is just interested in going elsewhere, that's fine. But to have someone going in and actively trying to pull someone out, I don't think anyone really, really wants that. I think another consequence is you're going to see coaches getting out the game. Like, I talked to some coaches and they're like, man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore with the way this is going. So you're right. NCAA asleep at the wheel is going to take a lot to at least put some order, bring some order to this chaos.
Yeah. And we haven't even talked about transfer portal in depth. We haven't talked about the comings and goings, but one last point, this is going to put a huge emphasis again on recruiting high school kids. And the reason I say that, I believe that there are coaches out there who said, why am I going to recruit a high school kid? Because if he's any good, he's going to leave. And if he's not good, well, I don't want him. Well, high school recruiting is going to get more important, because the more homes that you sit in front of parents and kids and get to know them and build that relationship, when it's almost over, you can say, look, I know you may not come to my school now, but remember me 2 years down the road, because I like your game and you can help us. And, just to keep that relationship going, I think that's something to keep an eye on.
It is a great point, but you mentioned comings and goings. We got the news that Frankie Collins is in the transfer portal. And Tim, I'm not surprised. I had been hearing some rumblings about, Frankie being disenchanted with his playing time during the season. That talk seemed to die down a lot as his playing time increased. But then I started hearing those same rumblings again when we were talking about Sam Sessoms. I heard when the Sam Sessoms talk, even though Juwan hadn't spoken to Sam Sessoms, just being attached to Sessoms in media reports, I started hearing that was causing some angst. And as soon as I heard that, I said, hey, I wouldn't be surprised, especially with Michigan being very active in the portal. I wouldn't be surprised if we wind up seeing Frankie enter the portal, and here we are.
You mentioned that a while back. That was a good call on your part. And I, in no way am I saying that Frankie Collins leaving is a positive, but there's an opportunity now for Michigan to upgrade that position. And look, I want to wish Frankie Collins the best of luck. I really enjoyed watching him play. But here's the truth. Michigan basketball has two major concerns in my mind as you move forward. Number one, really young guards, Doug McDaniel and Frankie Collins have not experienced massive success at the Big Ten level. They're both very small. And the other issue is that they're not good shooters. You can paint it however you want. Frankie Collins is not a good shooter. He was not a good shooter when I saw him in the fall. He's not a good shooter now. And so he's also 6'1". Small guards have a problem in the Big Ten. 17% from three. That's an issue. And he's predominantly a right-hand driver. He got figured out a little bit. And if you look at the course of the season, he, I think it was early in the year, he had, 8 points versus San Diego State. He was good in the NCAA tournament against Colorado State. And that's a big reason they won that game. Other than that, he had no games over 6 points other than those two. And so if your backcourt next year was going to be Collins and Kobe Bufkin, those guys, listen to these numbers, 11 for 54 from three. That's 20%. And Michigan was in the lower half of every three-point shooting category. They need to upgrade. And Sam, maybe this is the biggest point. On June 13th, all these NBA players, and there's a couple hundred of them that put their name into the NBA draft combine list. A lot of them are going to say, okay, I'm not hearing what I need to hear. I'm coming back to school. I need to find a college. Michigan is going to have a scholarship in their hand, and they're going to be very happy about that option.
So what do you think about the addition of Jaelin Llewellyn, Princeton transfer? I imagine that if Frankie had stayed, that Jaelin Llewellyn would have been the the new version of Eli Brooks. But now, obviously, the ball is, he's the lead guard for this team. At this point, what do you think about the addition of Jaelin Llewellyn?
Well, let's go back in time when the season ended. It might have been a month and a half ago. I took a deep dive into the transfer portal, and I brought up the names of some guys that were hot names: Adam Miller from LSU, Courtney Ramey from Texas, Andre Curbelo, which I think was a long shot. You mentioned Sam Sessoms. I saw all of those names. But I shared a name with you that I really liked from watching his tape and from understanding where he's coming from. That's Jaelin Llewellyn. He's the guy I liked right from the start. He's a combo guard, so he can play point guard or he can play shooting guard. He's from an academic school, so you don't have to worry about trying to have credits transfer. He's a grad student. He's already done. And I think he's going to appreciate a master's degree from the University of Michigan. I liked the fact that he was a really good post-entry player when I watched his film. We need somebody that can get the ball inside. So I think he's a great fit. And I seriously doubt that Michigan goes into next year without adding another point guard or combo guard from somewhere.
Yeah, I definitely expect to see that be something that comes up here in the coming days and weeks. To see if they can round out the roster more in the backcourt. Because, boy, at this point, with no returning lead guard from last season, no one that has experience in the system, experience with the other players on the roster. I mean, it sort of reminds me at least a little bit of the scenario that they had a few years back when Jerron Simmons came in and Eli Brooks came in. And then you had X here. X was at least a guy that had been around, but the other two didn't have any interest or any experience in the scheme. And there was some question as to whether or not X was going to be able to be, a front man for the team. So they had three different options. Now it wound up being X. To me, that's where you want to be this time around, to have as many options as possible with so much uncertainty at that position. So I expect, like you, for them to be active and trying to add another piece to the puzzle. But we will talk about that and more in the coming days and weeks, Tim. This one, you got to love Hunter, man. He keeps it interesting with us. And for him to be with us on video for the first time, he certainly came with it, and appreciate him spending time with us. And hopefully all the folks really enjoyed the Michigan Basketball Insider. Wherever you get your podcast, you can find it: Google, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, and of course, now here on YouTube. Until next time, folks, thanks for listening to the Michigan Basketball Insider.